Yo, 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 what is going on, my beautiful brothers and sisters, fellow radiators of love? My name is Jamal Pope, aka Jay Phoenix, and I'm coming at you with another astrological insight concerning the home team. I grew up in Atlanta, born and raised here, and the suburbs of Atlanta, and I wanted to cover the Atlanta Falcons. And it was interesting too because I was at the gym and I saw that the Colorado Buffaloes came back from. The Stanford came back on them. Deion Sanders lost that game. They were up 29-0 at the half, and they ended up losing in double overtime. And it felt, for some reason, just felt similar to when the Falcons gave up that 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl back in 2017. And they lost to Tom Brady, who came back from behind. Now, I made a prediction. My prediction was that Deion Sanders will eventually become the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. I didn't realize that there was a part one to this whole thing, too. So that's going to be part two. We'll cover that in part two. And I have my reasonings for believing that. Now, like I said, this is a prediction. It may or may not happen. But I figured, why not just look for fun to see what's going on? And I ended up uncovering other stuff. Tom Brady was destined to beat the Atlanta Falcons. I would not, and honestly, looking at this really starts to make me believe that sports, which I already knew that sports were entertainment, I've been questioning whether or not sports are actually real or authentic for a while now. Now, of course, it came out a long time ago that the WWE is fake. But here's the thing. Even with those athletes, you still have to be in shape to perform. They're not going to just take anybody. It's just like not anyone can just be an actor, right? You have to be able to perform and then be the right person for that part. So just because something is fake or put on a stage doesn't mean that the athletes don't actually have those skills, right? So, I believe that Deion Sanders will become the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. I don't think it's going to happen immediate, though. I'm giving it 5 years. I think his son will go to the league for a couple of years, and then Deion Sanders will eventually come up, become the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, and then whatever team that his son goes to, that's the quarterback right now of Colorado, whatever team that he is, there will be a trade. I would honestly be surprised if his son somehow goes to the Patriots. I would not be surprised if that happened. But we are going to take a look at the founding of the Atlanta Falcons and the Super Bowl itself. And we're also going to take a look at Tom Brady's chart because he was destined to beat the Atlanta Falcons on this day. I'm telling you guys. All right, so let's take a look at this. The inner ring is the founding date of the Atlanta Falcons. This was June 21st, 1965. I put the time a little bit earlier in the daytime because I figured that more than likely the people that met, the commissioners and stuff like that, they probably met later on in the day. So that makes the Atlanta Falcons a 0-degree Cancer sun with a 23-degree Pisces moon. And look at that. Is that Chiron on the moon? It is. Chiron's on the moon. The moon would have opposed Mars and Virgo as well that day. And look at this. Jupiter is on the north node in Gemini at 13 degrees. Pretty crazy. I just heard a freaking car alarm out back there. So that knows I know I'm on the right track here. Jupiter on the north node, right? Now, what I find interesting about this chart is that I ran it juxtaposed against the Super Bowl, February 5th, 2017, right? The day that will go down in infamy in Atlanta sports. And if you're an Atlanta sports fan, if you're a fan of all the teams here or any of the professional teams here, you know that we have a tendency to blow big leads. We have a tendency to just not get the job done. Oh my. Is that a Chiron return exact 22:34, 22:33. Chiron had returned to the exact spot of when the Atlanta Falcons was founded. It was the Atlanta Falcons' Chiron return. The moon was in Gemini that day, and it went over the Atlanta Falcons' North Node and Jupiter on that day. Crazy. There was no way the Falcons were going to win this game. Absolutely no way. But to add insult to injury, let's take a look at Tom Brady's chart. To add a little bit more insult to injury. All right, so let me see if I get Tom Brady's chart. All right, boom. All right. Can I make this a little bit bigger? All right, cool. All right, here's Tom Brady's chart. Born August 3rd, 1977. He's a Leo sun, 11 degrees. Saturn is also in Leo. He is a North Node conjunct his ascendant in Libra, 17 degrees. All right. Now, the things that I want you to pay attention to are his Mars in Gemini and his moon in Aries. Those are the two things that I want you to pay attention to because he was destined to win this game. And I would not be surprised, honestly, if this was a controlled demolition. It's interesting as well. If you look at it, that was the last year that the Atlanta Falcons played in the Georgia Dome. They will go on to play in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium the following year. So it was their last year. So it literally was like a death and rebirth, right, of the Falcons. And honestly, when I think of the Falcons, I kind of almost see it as a phoenix, if you will. The colors are red and black, right? So... and there are a lot of different names that were proposed for the Falcons. And one of them was the Firebirds. That was one of the names that was proposed for the Falcons. Of course, they obviously end up going with the Falcons, right? But that pretty much functioned as a death and rebirth, right? Now, Tom Brady's Mars is at 11 degrees of Gemini. His part of fortune is at 1258 of Gemini. His moon is at 6 degrees of Aries. Now, I want you guys to remember these positions because we're going to go back to the chart that we were at earlier. Present, share screen. We're going to go back to over here. Remember, this outer event right here is the Super Bowl. What was at 6 degrees of Aries that day? Mars. Mars was conjunct his moon on the Super Bowl. What was at 11, 12, 13-ish degrees of Gemini? The moon. So the moon was on this dude's Mars, and Mars was on this dude's moon. Said it's part of fortune. It's right here on the degrees, right here where the North Node and Jupiter were. He was destined to overcome this. You got to think about Mars is the warrior, right? Mars is this warrior. And we got to think about with sports too. We have these arenas. We have coliseums all over this country, all over the world now. We have coliseums. And you got to think about it too, guys, is that the presidents or the emperors, that are watching this sport for spectacle, for entertainment, do you not think for a second, that there would not be some kind of influence in here? If you have a champion, right, you got to make sure that your champion is winning games. Not to deny Tom Brady's athleticism, but if you had a bowl, right, if you had a coliseum and you have a champion, right, to get the crowd and get everyone going and stuff, right, the excitement of everything, the energy of everything, they need to be able to win consistently. Eventually they will lose, but they need to be able to win rather consistently. So you create matches for them that will really cement their legacy. And it's crazy too, looking at all this of what was happening, right? That the fact that Tom Brady's Mars at 11 degrees of Gemini was conjunct the moon on the Super Bowl and was conjunct within just a couple of degrees of the North Node and Jupiter of the Atlanta Falcons chart. You can't make this shit up, y'all. He was destined to win that game. He was destined to come back from behind and to defy the odds of a 28-3 deficit. He was meant to climb that mountain and win that game. When I saw this, honestly, the moment when I saw the fact that the Atlanta Falcons was going through their Chiron return on that day, as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, there's no way they're going to win that Super Bowl. There's no way you're going to win the Super Bowl on a Chiron return. Are you kidding me? Now, I mean, I have to go back and look at every Super Bowl champion now, look at their chart or whatever like that and stuff. And you're probably thinking, like, why Astro Phoenix? Why do you care about this? I'm just showing you guys that the astrology shows up everywhere, even in your sports. Sports is ruled by Aries. It's primarily ruled by Aries and it's ruled by Leo. It's mainly the fire signs, but it's ruled by Aries, right? So what an amazing story this would be, right? What an incredible story this would be for Tom Brady. This was probably the one that cemented him as the GOAT, right? For him to come back 28-3 to the Falcons and win. He rose from the ashes of that first half and beat them in overtime. Then, of course, the Falcons demolished their stadium and they had a new stadium the following year. And the Falcons have been pretty much mediocre ever since then. But except part two of this is going to be about Deion Sanders coming to the league. He will be the coach of the Atlanta Falcons, and he will draw his son to the Falcons, and he will win the Falcons their first Super Bowl. That is my prediction. But we first have to look in the past and see what the fuck happened to the Falcons and why they lost the Super Bowl in the first place. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And if we want to as well, let's just go ahead and take a look at Deion Sanders' chart real fast. Because we might as well just go ahead and bring it up. Sun conjunct Jupiter at 15, 16 degrees of Leo. That's my main one. And also, we have the fact that we have that North Node in Taurus at 0 degrees, so which means the South Node was in Scorpio at 0 degrees. And we are about to have a full moon lunar eclipse that's actually going to be hitting the midpoint. It's actually going to be opposite the midpoint of his Mars and his South Node. I think that's pretty damn interesting. Main only thing is the sun on Jupiter in Leo, which explains his personality, explains his energy, explains what he's able to bring to the table. It explains how he's an inspiration also to his players. He also has Mercury at 1 degree there, right? So it kind of definitely shows how he can speak to, those college kids and really inspire them and stuff. Now, the fact that he lost 29-0, he lost after being up 29-0 during the half, just kind of, it's just reminiscent of the Falcons losing. And some of y'all probably think I'm reaching here, and that's fine, because we're going to look at it in part two. Some of y'all might think I'm reaching here, but here's the weird thing about it too. Saturn is in Pisces right now, so that means that Deion Sanders is about to get his second Saturn return. He's about to get his second Saturn return. So we'll go more into that on part two. Just wanted to show you guys why the Atlanta Falcons lost that game. They were supposed to. Tom Brady is a fucking warrior, and he was designed for that event to take over and to pretty much caused the Falcons to go through a death and rebirth. They had reached the pinnacle. They made it to the Super Bowl before when they played against Denver, but this was their best the Falcons had ever looked. They reached the pinnacle of their success, and then they got slayed by Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. So they can demolish their old nest and rise again. There's a whole lot of imagery with the Falcons. Rise up. I think the team should be called the Atlanta Phoenixes or Firebirds. But that might be like a code. Maybe that's what they actually are. And the other thing about sports that you guys have to realize is that a lot of people pay attention to sports, right? The whole sports betting, you have all this sort of stuff. The gods also bet on our sports because a lot of their things, a lot of their stories, a lot of their drama is actually played out through sports and the mascots. That's why you have to really pay attention to these energies. Pay attention to the mascots of teams. They are not random. Why are the Philadelphia Eagles the Eagles? Well, the Eagles, the national national bird of the country, and the country was founded in Philadelphia. I also think it's interesting how the Philadelphia Eagles logo is the only logo that faces the left. If you look at all the other ones, especially the bird teams, they all face the right, but the Eagles faces the left. There's a reason for that. Anyways, so that is going to do it for this astrological insight about the Atlanta Falcons and why Tom Brady was destined to overcome that 28-3 deficit and win that game, despite the fact that it hurt a lot of us Falcons fans. And yes, I am primarily an Eagles fan, but I still support the Atlanta Falcons. Just like when they play each other, I'm an Eagles fan. It's interesting, too. I actually noticed that the Falcons' first game that they ever played was a preseason game against the Eagles, and they end up losing that game. And then they end up opening up their season, losing like their first 9 games, and then they finally won. So Falcons were trash for a while. They got decent. Then they were trash, and they got good again, and then they fizzled out, right? And my other main reason why thinking that Deion Sanders is going to become the head coach is because he's going to draw the electricity back to Atlanta. Right? Atlanta has not been electric since the days of Michael Vick. And you can say what you want about the whole Matt Ryan thing. He was not as electric of a player as Michael Vick. Right? He was Michael Vick was the last super electric player that the Falcons had. Deion Sanders was also a very electric player for the Falcons when he played for them. So people forget that he played for the Falcons too. So anyways, that's going to do it for this video. And let me know what you guys think. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.